And hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Trish Carr, and we're here for another episode of Sister to Sister. I'm so glad you're joining us today. We have these conversations because they have to be had, and yet they can be a little uncomfortable. But isn't there
Mhm.
always something good on the other side of discomfort? So I'm really excited to have you here with us this morning and to be a part of this conversation, which is really what it is. It's a conversation about racism, and we just explore how people
Mhm.
experience it because, you can always argue with concepts like white privilege and systemic racism, but you can't argue with people's experience. So that's the whole purpose of this show, is to open hearts and open minds to what other people experience and to see things from a different point of view. And this morning, I am so happy to have with me Lawana Parker. And many of you
Mhm.
know the fabulous Lawana Parker. She's an Amazon International Award winning author, a 3-time best selling author, a blogger, a motivational speaker. Lawana, you always inspire me. She's a journal coach, a podcast TV interviewer. You're amazing. As I look at all of your accolades, you know that you're a Toastmasters um, really expert, and you are involved in the Public Speakers Association. But I know that you make a difference for so many people. You've won the Woman of the Year and Distinguished Toastmasters Award. So I know you make a big difference for people. Thank you for what you do with journaling and blogging and supporting people in really leading by example, Luana, right? Isn't that what it's about?
That's what it's all about. And thank you so much for inviting me on today. Uh, that's been my life work, it seems. As I tell people, it started with my mom. I was her confidant from the time I was about 10 years old, and it seems I've been doing it ever since.
Really, it started with your mom. I hear that
Mm-hmm.
often from people. That's,
Mm-hmm.
the woman that we look up to. So much of us do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're watching, I really appreciate if you would hit that share button on the bottom there. You see that share button on Facebook? Go ahead and click that and go ahead and share this broadcast, because the more people that get involved in the conversation, the more we move forward. And Luana, I'm so glad that you said yes, because it was so funny when I invited you. You responded back to me saying, "You sure you want to have me?" Right? Because your take on your experience. Share a little bit about what you were saying to me in terms of your experience.
Well, I I've heard over the years people talk about the different things that they've gone through. The most thing that I have experienced as far as racism is concerned was when we first came to California and we would stop at restaurants or gas stations, as they called them then, and there would be signs that said whites only for colored only. That was my extent. Then a few years later, I saw on television where they had the fire hose and they would be watering down black people who were trying to march for their rights. So that was my extent of any prejudice that I experienced. Now, I'm not going to say that maybe when I turned my back that somebody didn't say something, but in my face, I never experienced that. In fact, the minister over the Baptist center that I went to was white. And if it hadn't been for him, there were a lot of things I would not have experienced in life because of him. He opened my eyes to so many different things, and I used to get invited to his family house for lunch and things like that, which was a little kind of funny feeling because I thought, gee, I wonder why they accept me here when others don't like me, you know. But it was my first real integration far as white and black was concerned. They seemed okay with it. Again, you don't know what people say behind your back, but in my face, they treated me with kindness and respect. So when I hear other people who are shared, and I have no doubts that they have gone through these things, I have a sister who uh, she's very negative. Okay, let me put it that way. And sometimes I think because she's negative, maybe she causes people to respond to her in the same manner. Whereas on the my side, I have a tendency to like everybody. Until you raise your hand to me, I'm fine with you.
Right.
Don't hit me. I can't handle that. I'm as nice as can be, but I will do what is necessary to protect myself. But I get along with people because I look for the good. And
And looking for the good,
mhm,
is great. And I think that you got that. I think
mhm,
you told me that the minister was Mr. Ralston, right?
yes,
Was
mhm,
that his name?
that was
So
his
you
name.
were you were taken under his wing while you were growing up in segregation, right?
Mm,
That's the time. Because I want to be clear. The time was, whites only bathrooms. When you were
mhm.
traveling to California, were you dealing with the Green Book? I mean, everybody knows about the Green Book now because it was a movie. But where were you traveling from?
We were coming from Texas. That's where I was born.
So,
And
what was that experience like as a child?
well, as a child, I didn't get to know because I was in my segregated part of town. I went to school with only blacks, rode the bus with only blacks. Uh, Everything was just us. So I didn't get a chance to really say I was mistreated because of my color. And that was part of what helped me because when we came to California, I wasn't looking to be mistreated by
Right.
anybody. Although I did have to, you know how you get tested when you're in the project. Had to go through my test in order to survive the projects.
What kind of tests?
That's when they pick on you to see how you're going to handle it. So I actually had 3 fights uh, with 3 different girls, and I passed those because I was fortunate in the fact that while I was not the best fighter in the world, I had good weapons.
You had weapons? What were they? Your nails.
Long and hard. My nails have always been long and hard. So I won my fights and became friends with everybody. Nobody ever messed with me after that. It was nice. Um, I had some Hispanic friends because the area we lived in was pretty integrated.
Mhm,
Blacks, Hispanics, there was some Asians, very
mhm.
few whites. There were some Russians that were there too. But yeah, everybody seemed to get along pretty good, even though we were the project.
Well, and it's funny when you told me, you saying that I really haven't experienced a lot of racism.
Mhm.
I said it's interesting that I had another Lawana on the show a few months ago, Lawana Bradford, and she was saying the same thing. She said that she grew up, she was an army brat, or
Mhm.
one of the service, and she grew up overseas mostly. Then when she
Mhm.
moved back to the U.S., she was living in Arizona, Phoenix area, I think. And
Oh.
while she was the only Black girl in her school and one of a few, she
Mhm.
said that she never really experienced anything until she was about 30 years old and she moved to Atlanta.
Oh
And then when
wow.
she moved to Atlanta, she, right? She moved to Atlanta,
Mhm.
and on Peachtree Street, the main Peachtree Street in Atlanta, she's driving
Mhm.
down the street and there's a KKK rally happening. And at that time, she got out of
Mhm.
the car to go to the grocery store in that neighborhood. And then people were saying bad, racial epithets to
Mhm.
her, saying negative things. She said, but until that time in my life, I
Mhm.
really never experienced racism. It was a,
I'll
a big awakening for her.
I'll have to talk to her. I know Lawana, and we are
Yeah.
actually doing a couple of things together. I'm gonna have to talk to her about that. But mentioning about Georgia reminded me when I was living in Illinois because I spent a year there, and I was working at this nursing home, and one of the ladies that I became friends with was white, and she, in fact, it was at that nursing home that I first had my real integration, okay? Because there were two high school girls there, one white, one black, and they were best friends. And I used to watch how they interacted with one another, and then I was just amazed because remember, this is still Martin Luther King hadn't even been assassinated yet. And so there was still this thing between black and white. So I would watch the interaction and how they got along and they laughed and joked and whatnot. And I thought that's the way we all should be. Well, one of the ladies there, for whatever reason, she was white, but she took a liking to me and I had to walk a certain amount of distance. And every day she would warn me, be careful out there now because you're out there by yourself and your life is in danger, you know. But in that whole year that I was there, I never had any problems with anyone. But I thought it was so nice of her that she was concerned about me, you know?
Well, and people around you knew that there was concern
Hmm.
because of your race, but it's not something you ever experienced. It was
Mm-mm.
how you just, was it just a, you just didn't notice, or you just dealt, like that's what we talked about, you just deal with it, it is what it is, and I don't need to create it, and you get what you give. We talk about the law of attraction, and if you're
Hmm.
expecting to be discriminated against, perhaps that's what happens because you're expecting it, right? we
Hmm.
we go back and forth with that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But how is it that others thought you might be in danger but you never noticed?
I honestly don't know. And I have been accused, even today, sometimes I'm accused of being naive.
Mm.
Yeah, I am naive, but whatever the reason is, I have been fortunate that I've been associating with people who have not acted out toward me or name called me. In fact, there was one time a gentleman, he was telling a joke, and we were all standing around listening, and we laughed at it. Now, I don't remember what the joke was, but all of a sudden he goes, "Lawana, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that." And I said, "Well, say what?" And he said, "Well, that joke could have been taken the wrong way." I said, "Well, if I had taken it the wrong way, I'd have let you know that you had done something wrong. It was just a joke." I wish I could remember what it was now, but at the time I thought, wow, we have to be so careful all the time. When we're just laughing and having fun, we have to be conscious of, is the other person going to be offended? And
Right.
I'm saddened for that because I think it takes away so much from life that we're constantly on the defense about, am I being offensive to someone? So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, putting yourself on the defensive like that can't be an easy way to live. So what's your take on the what's going on now? What's been, with what's been happening with police and, the Black Lives Matter movement, everything that's gone on for the last year and a half, in terms of, it feels like the new civil rights movement to me, right?
Yeah.
A rebirth of the civil rights movement. What's your take on everything that's going on in terms of civil rights for African American people?
I have given this a lot of thought and I have mixed feelings about it. I see what's happening. My son is a policeman, so I'm concerned anytime he goes out. But what I have to remember is that we need the police. I know there are bad apples in the police department,
Oh
and
yeah.
we have to root those out. But I'm here to tell you, as a person who tried very hard to be perfect, it's not possible, okay? I didn't try one
No.
time. I tried a number of times. It is not possible. It's something we strive for. So we strive to root out the bad apples, but there's always going to be someone left. And that's the one you have to be on the guard for. But for the most part, the police are there to protect you.
Yes.
I have not heard of anyone who said that. Let me put it this way. I don't know about yesteryear because I didn't have cause to call the police. But I haven't heard anyone say today that the police, when they found out what color I was, they didn't show up. Personally, I have not heard anyone say that. Um, we need law and order. Without it, we have chaos. What I feel we should do is just sit down and be willing to listen to each other. And when I say listen, I mean really listen, not thinking about, okay, how am I going to respond to what they say? Listen to what the other person is saying. Um, I had feelings when they took down the the flag, uh, the Southern flag. I can't think. I'm going blank here. I'm having senior moments,
Well,
folks.
no, they had many of the flags in the South had the rebel flag as part of the
Right,
state flag.
right. And I had mixed emotions about that. I'm gonna be perfectly truthful about. I had mixed emotion because I was looking at both sides. I was looking at from my side, it was a reminder of slavery, and I was looking at it from their side. This was a part of their history. Well, it's also a part of our history, and to me, we should have left it there to remind us not to let it happen again. Now we don't have a reminder of what happened to us in the past so that it doesn't happen again. Things like that are easy to happen when people forget. I mean, look at what happened to the Jewish people back in during World War I and World War II, because they thought everything was okay. They let their guards down, and you just have to be aware of stuff. And I don't ever want to forget what happened, but I don't want to live in the past either. I want to
Right,
look forward. I want I've got, my goodness, I got 15 grandchildren and 7 great grandchildren, and they're all mixed with various races.
right.
So for me to hate any of those races means I have to hate them, and I'm not hating my my grandchildren. I love them too much. Very
And
proud
does
of
it
all of them.
and it comes down to the individual relationships, and
Mhm,
when you can let those transcend all of the other,
mhm,
then we don't have the
mm,
challenges that we
mhm,
have.
mhm,
A whole thing about the rebel flag. I lived in Atlanta when they were debating whether or not to change the Georgia state flag.
mhm,
And the reason that, I mean, first of all, the way I feel is if it offends anyone, then
mhm,
it shouldn't be up there, right?
mhm.
Just like the Washington Redskins are changing their name because Redskin is actually a racial slur, right? Washington Redskins in football. So they've changed their name for that reason. And I think that the flag really, the rebel flag became a rallying cry that I don't think we're going to forget, but the
Mhm,
prevalence of it, where it was, how often you saw it, that it was at
mhm,
NASCAR races, and
mhm,
it became a symbol
mhm,
that I do agree that it should be changed. I don't
mhm,
think we're going to forget, but I don't want to see monuments of the generals who fought
mhm.
for the Confederate Army. I mean, in Germany, you don't see monuments of Hitler and Mengele and all of those people. So that's what I likened it to.
Well,
So
you're right there. You're right there, and no one should feel offended about something that really played a part in their history.
yeah, I
Um,
like that it's
the
gone. When I used to see it, I still see it. Yeah,
well,
I
the
still
only
see the
thing
rebel
that
flag, men
the
in pickup trucks,
well,
right? Men in
well,
pickup trucks
true,
with big
and
rebel
I
flags.
guess
That
that's
can't mean
where,
anything good.
yeah, and I guess that's where I differ from people, because when I see things like that, I think never again.
I agree. But never
That's how I
again,
think. But
me too.
most people don't think that way, and I'm aware of that. If we don't, however, if we start taking down everything that offends everyone, we'd have nothing. 'Cause somebody's going to be offended by something. However, I will not disagree with you on this particular subject, because it happens to hurt so many people,
Yeah.
and so many people still have memories of what it is. I mean, wow.
Well, and,
I
and
just wish I had been like my grandfather. I think about him. He's born in 1885. in Texas. He moved to Louisiana and he worked as a sharecropper to earn money because he wanted to have his own land. And he did it despite the fact that his siblings made fun of him because he was illegitimate and they poked fun at him. That's why he left Texas to come to Louisiana. He worked hard. And when my grandfather passed away, my grandfather was well known in the community. People came to him for advice. Didn't matter what color they were. They came to him for advice. This is something that I witnessed when we spent a year in Louisiana with him when my grandmother had cancer. And people respected him. When he died, he owed no one anything. He paid for all of my grandmother's medical expenses, and he left his family 320 acres of land that was all paid for. He was a farmer who raised just about anything that could grow in Louisiana. And that was the kind of person he was. And I think about what he must have gone through to get to where he was at,
Right.
you know? So I think I wish I was like him. I wish he had lived longer so I could have learned how he handled things.
Well, I just love the way you look at life and the
Mm.
way you're basically, this is the way it is, and I do my best to have a good life within
Mhm.
whatever that construct
Mm.
is, right?
Right.
Whatever that is,
Exactly.
I'm going to do and live my best life.
Exactly. And I have been, I truly believe I've been blessed. And I believe there's the Lord, his angels watching over me. Sometimes I will have to share some stories with you as to why I say
Why
that.
you have angels, why you know you have angels. You know,
Exactly.
as I think about what's happening with the voting rights,
Mm.
I don't know if you've been up to, if you've been seeing what's going on, but in many states, Texas, Georgia, they have changed the way people vote, and it's said that it's meant to keep minorities away from voting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Actually, I have not been paying attention to the news lately because it's been so depressing, and I did not want to fall into that trap
Good
of
for
being
you.
depressed, you know. But I have heard something about it. I don't know all the details for me to give a good answer on that subject. My only thing is that I wish that for election day, all business except for emergency services, of course, would just shut down
Yeah.
and let people go vote. I'm a, I am not for people voting, going and registering at the last minute. That concerns me uh, because I take voting seriously. I had to be 21 when I started to vote, and I took it seriously. I vote every election for all the elections. I don't miss because if I'm going to complain, I want to have the right to complain. I made my put my vote out there. I have the right to say what I want to say, and so I make sure I'm at every election. I don't know what to think about that because I don't know all the details. I haven't heard both sides of what's being said about it.
Hmm.
So I don't want to mislead people and say the wrong thing and have them thinking one thing is going on or I'm feeling one way or the other without all the facts.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Hmm.
Well, I so appreciate you being here, and I'm glad to have a fresh perspective.
Hmm.
Here's a woman who grew up during, um, Jim Crow years, and who was living in segregation, and it was just life. And I love your spirit. I love
Hmm.
what you portray. You're always positive. You're always looking forward. You're never looking behind. And I so appreciate that about you. Luana, thank
Hmm.
you so much for this conversation. And for those of you who would like to get involved in really working to be anti racist, one of the newest organizations I just started checking out that Luana Bradford actually told me about is colorofchange.org. Colorofchange.org is a grassroots organization that's doing a lot of great things. So,
I will
and
have to check that out. And
yes, and
thank
honestly,
you.
to everybody out there, there may be things that you don't agree with
Hmm.
in the platform of
Hmm.
certain groups, and that's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but the mission and the vision is a world where we live together, a world where there is no segregation, where there is no racism, where we, like Luana said, we're just people to people. My family is mixed race, so I'm not going to put anything out to the world when I'm talking about my own people here, right? So
Exactly.
it's about relationships. Anything you want to share before we go with our listeners?
Mm, just to look for the good, smile, say hello, and trust me, that makes a big difference. Just doing that. Um, I love people, and I want to continue to love people, and I will continue to look for the good. But as I say, please don't put your hands on me in a violent way. I'm just
Right.
like anybody else in that case. I will respond. But
Well, and lucky you haven't had to
mhm.
experience that since
Oh
the
my gosh, thank you. Look, I'm
projects.
telling you that there's
Since
an
those
angel
girls in the
watching me.
projects.
So yes, everyone, there is so much that we each have to offer. And if we would just stop and take time to get to know one another, and there's so much we can learn from each other. And I personally feel our lives would be so much better. I feel mine is 100% better just knowing the wives of my sons, my grandchildren, getting to experience that. I had a mentor one time who, when I first came to Sacramento, I'm never going to forget her, Mrs. Velma Stokely. And she was the one who got me involved in a number of things because she says you're never going to learn or appreciate until you get out and find out about other people and what they're thinking. And I so appreciate that. Mm.
And that's the key. It's
Yeah.
listening, like you said, just listening to each
Hmm.
other and
Hmm.
caring about each other.
Yep.
Luana, thank you so much for being with us today. Make sure you want to learn more about Luana and what she's up to. And she's amazing what she does with people in
Thank
terms of
you.
supporting them in being able to write and share their
Hmm.
vision, their message with people. So go to luanasblog.com and learn
Hmm.
more about the amazing Luana Parker. And again,
Thank you. Thank
well,
you for inviting me too.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for
Hmm.
being with me. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for
Hmm.
sharing. And we'll see you soon with another episode of Sister to Sister. This is Trish Carr signing out. Thank you so
Hmm.
much, everybody, for watching, sharing, and for keeping the conversation going.